Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. And in today's stream, we are going to talk about AWS PartyRock app again. So this time we are going to build the app for the second time, but it is going to be different because yesterday uh, we built the app by remixing an app, but today we are going to build the app manually. That is from scratch, not via a prompt. So this is something very interesting use case that I have not yet published a video for, and it would be published by end of the February. But today on live stream, it is going to happen live, where I have a very talented speaker with me, and that speaker is Jones. Who is Jones? Jones is a AWS hero. He also started his journey as a AWS community builder with me. We both were AWS community builder for a long time together, for around 2 to 3 years, and then we moved to AWS Heroes accreditation, as well as Jones work as a developer advocate, where he shares and talks about cloud, DevOps, and multiple techs. So I won't take much of your time to introduce him by myself. Let me bring him on the screen and let him introduced by himself, because there are tons of contribution that this guy makes. And for me, remembering everything and telling you everything is not possible. So let him do that good work of sharing what exactly he's doing for the community. So let me have Jones with us right away. Hello, Jones.
Hey,
How are
Dheeraj.
you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm also doing good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for being on the live stream. I have my audience available for you, and I would request you to please go ahead and introduce yourself, what you have been doing, your community efforts, the talks that you give. A lot of stuff I know, and I leave it to you. Over to you, Jones.
Thanks, Dheeraj. Yeah, I think you did a good job about telling who I am. But apart from what I do for work and what I have been recognized as a serverless hero and all of that aside, I love to contribute to the community. I also co-organize AWS user group in Bengaluru. I write a lot of things about serverless because serverless is something that's very close to my heart. I've built my career with serverless, and it's something that I love to talk about, be it with respect to writing blogs around different architecture patterns, what's new in serverless, or even my newsletter called the Serverless Terminal, which I publish uh, about 15 days once, talking about what's happening in the serverless space. Along with it, I also do a podcast co-run with another hero from New Zealand, where we talk about serverless and DevOps and all things AWS. So yeah, and hello to Bhavesh as well.
Yes, yes, yes. So we have Bhavesh here as always. He's always on all of the live stream to support us and uh, you know uh, talk more about tech. So today, thank you, Bhavesh, for being here and supporting us like you always do. So without wasting much time, Jones, I think I will give you the thread to take it further and talk more about what exactly you are going to do today as part of AWS PartyRock app build challenge. What you're going to build, why you're going to build, what is the reason of building it, and how it is going to help users. So if you want me to share the screen, let me know, then I can make it available.
Yes, you can add it to the stage.
Okay, let me do it right away. So over to you, Jones.
Ta-da! Okay. So thanks, Dheeraj. And like always, the series we are talking about Party Rock and building about Party Rock apps. I know it's a fun way to do it, and using generative AI to support you and do a lot of assistance work for you because you don't have all of the knowledge, right? Uh, Party Rock is amazing because you can just create the way how you want to create using different prompts and everything. So today I'll be talking about serverless again, but using Party Rock because in serverless, like most of you may have already been aware, there are multiple ways to do one specific thing, and there's no right or wrong because it all depends, as it's always said, right? It depends. So let's understand why it depends, and let's understand how a specific use case that you have and you think, okay, serverless could be the way, but you're not sure about what's the pros and cons. Is it the well architected way to build a specific solution with that for that use case, and also understand what are the trade-offs, because when you're building with serverless, there are tons of trade-offs that you always do. So let's understand all of this with PartyRock. Like Dheeraj already mentioned, we are going to build this from scratch. So how do you do it is basically go to your PartyRock homepage, and there is a button that says generate app. You could give your prompt, but now we are going to skip that and go, uh, we are going to break things. So let's say build manually. So it comes as a complete canvas where you could play around with how you want to define what are the different components that you want to use. For example, we'll take the input as the use case and define your use case in detail and save it. So as a user who's using this app, this is what you'll have to define, and let the rest of the magic happen with PartyRock. I have already saved the prompts and the things that I'll be using because I wanted to be sure if the generative AI is doing it the right way. So let me say recommended choice. So this generates a set of answers or the set of details in terms of what it is. So we will say, based on the use case that is there, let's recommend the best AWS well-architected tool, which is also preferably with serverless, because we're trying to build this completely on serverless. And also explain what it does and how it works, because it's important to understand all of the basics when you're trying to build something. Next off, let's label it as recommended choice. You could also change the model that you have. By default, it comes with Claude. Let's try. I was speaking to Dheeraj, and he convinced me Noah is better than Claude. So let me try that out. We'll keep the temperature and toppy as defaults.
So if you're using Nova Pro, it is going to generate a lot of context. So it is the highest, it is a model which gives you a lot of context. So you have to think whether you have to use Nova, Pro, Lite, or the micro one. So let's start
What
with
would you
Pro.
recommend?
So if you need short and precise response, then Lite is okay. If you need a middle one, it is, but if you need a detailed one, the Pro is the best one. So let's start with Pro. Then if you feel, you can keep on changing it once you test your app. What do you say?
Awesome. Yeah. It's always fun to try out the newer things. Yeah. Now that you have the recommended choice, the next of what we'll have to do is we'll have to understand if there are any pros and cons with this. So again, generated text, go to the labels, we'll say pros and cons of the specific use case. So let's say list the key pros and cons of each of the AWS architecture choice recommended in widget 1. Oops. Oh, I didn't save it. That's
I think you are trying to change the label name, right? Yeah.
yes. I didn't change it the first time.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You can change for the second one also. Yeah.
Yep.
So guys, this is another method of creating the app. So whatever videos I have shared, it is just by creating a prompt and it will create it for you. But once you know PartyRock properly and you want to utilize it to its maximum capacity, I also myself prefer to build it by doing it manually, where I decide which widget I will have and I will arrange it accordingly.
So once that you get a better understanding of what the recommended choices, what are the pros and cons, you want to build it. And to build it, let's use the best way to do it with infrastructure as code. While trying it out earlier, I was using AWS SAM, but now let's try CDK. So
Jonas, once you are done with creating the query, just talk about how that query also impacts your results based on not the query, the prompt that you're adding over there.
got it. Yeah. So when you're defining these widgets, the prompts play a key role. Oops, I didn't save it the first time. It's always important to save. Lesson learned. So when you're building these widgets, it's important to understand what these prompts are, and being as detailed with prompts helps because that's how the LLM will understand it and interpret it, right? And at least for now, most of you might have already faced this. Giving vague prompts to LLMs gives you vague answers. So being as detailed and specific with what you want the response to be with the prompt really helps. So when you're doing it, you could also reference it across different widgets. So you can see that I'm taking the user input as the use case. And whenever the use case input comes in, the recommended choice will use the input value, whatever we type it in, from use case, and again use this specific prompt telling that based on the usage described uh, in the use case input, recommend the best AWS architected choice with well architected tool, which is preferably serverless because I'm the serverless guy, and explain why also, and also how it works, right? So we have defined the prompts. Let me save it. And this, again, the pros and cons is dependent on the recommended choice. Whenever the recommended choice generates the answer, the pros and cons will kick in to list all the pros and cons based on the recommended choice that it generated, and infrastructure as code will be generated based on the recommended choice. So now that we have uh, typed all of this thing, we have the app ready. Let's call it ready for now. And we could use a specific use case. Again, I have the use case already with me. So let me just paste that, make it more readable, and let's see what's the use cases. Is this readable, Dheeraj? Yeah, awesome. So the use case is simple. It's a serverless URL shortener, which is a web app that transforms long URLs into shorten, making it more manageable links, because who would really remember a very long link, right? And shorter links are also easier to share in your social medias and sharing it to somebody else. This type of service is particular useful for social media, email marketing, and other digital communications where space is limited and aesthetics is important. By leveraging serverless architecture, developers can create a scalable and cost-effective solution without the need to manage server infrastructure. So this is basically a use case that we are using, and we are also telling the model that it has to be a serverless based approach. So let's try it out. You can see it's generating a couple of things. Yes, based on the principles of cost effective and highly scalable, it recommended the key components, telling API gateway, Lambda functions, DynamoDB, CloudFront, and Route 53, which are optional again. And it also gave you a simple rundown of how the architecture would look like. You have your Route 53 that's there that will point to API gateway, which in turn talks to Lambda function, DynamoDB, whenever there is a user request that's happening via CloudFront that's also going through API gateway. This also gives a good description of what the recommended choices and why do you need specific services. Say, for example, Route 53 for DNS management if you're using custom domain. Of course, when you're using URL shorteners, you don't want a very system-generated URLs. Instead, you need custom domains which are really short, right? Like short or bitleys and things like that. Very short, easy to remember, and you have a custom code that's there with it, and which generates the custom code which generates and be stored in your DynamoDB. You get it whenever you're making a request via an API. It makes the API call via Lambda function, gets the value that is stored in your DynamoDB database as short codes, retrieves it, and sends it back to your API gateway, which is a redirectional URL as a response, and it redirects to that specific longer URL. So the flow as well, what I was talking, LLM has also generated really in a very readable format, telling what are the different APIs that will be used. You have the post, and with the path called shorten, what happens, API gateway is called, Lambda function is being requested. There's a unique code that gets generated and stores in the DynamoDB table. It returns the shortened URL. Whenever you want to access the shortcode, it is your custom domain / shortcode. Again, API gateway makes a request, Lambda function is triggered. It gets the shortened code from DynamoDB table and returns a 301 or 302 redirectional response. If you remember, from the prompt, I also asked, tell me why this architecture is recommended and why is it beneficial for somebody, right? So it gave me certain benefits of using serverless in terms of performance, the security that it involves, the cost effectiveness, and also scalability aspect of it. So you can see that based on the different fronts of the well-architected tool or the well-architected framework, it recommended things in terms of performance, saying, hey, with CloudFront, you get low latency. DynamoDB has a single-digit millisecond response. There is also, with respect to security, you can include WAF on top of your CloudFront distributions, enabling making the domains more secure because you can protect it from things like DDoS attacks and SQL injections, whatnot. It's also cost-effective because serverless is, again, it's running only whenever there is a request. There's no idle time cost associated with it. It's also scalable because you can handle millions of requests, and there's no capacity planning that you would have to take care before deploying it. Along with this was a surprise because it also gave me an implementation code. It told me, hey, your Lambda function code, this is what it has to be. You have to make DynamoDB request to store the shortcode and return the shortened URL. Whenever there is a redirectional request, that is the get API being called, what should happen is basically DynamoDB read should happen. It should get the item and return 301 with the redirectional location. So basically redirecting the API request to that specific URL. Also, wow, this gave me the DynamoDB schema as well. In terms of well-architected principles, again, reiterating the pillars of operational excellence, security, reliability, and performance excellency, cost effectiveness. I think sustainability is missing, but it did good a job with respect to like, hey, with the 5 pillars of well-architected tool, this solution or this architecture is really good. And it provides a robust, scalable, and a cost-effective solution for something such as a URL shortener. So that was just about the recommended choice. If you remember, we created more widgets with respect to telling the LLM model, hey, we need more pros and cons about the specific architectural choices that we made, because all of these are different AWS services. And these services could have something that's really great, or something that is a quota, or something that's not really you would have to think ahead about in terms of telling, hey, there could be cold starts if there is no invocation that's happened in a very long time. There's also things with respect to the request response sizes that we will have to be mindful of. All of these factors which comes in, because when you're defining architecture, you have to be aware about what's the best part of using their architecture, and also the things that you will have to be really mindful of, or you would have to have a heads up telling that, yeah, this could happen with this architecture, right? It's making trade-offs. So it did a fantastic job in terms of telling, with API gateway, these are the specific pros, these are the cons. There's also Lambda function that's used in your architecture, so pros and cons for that. And with DynamoDB, CloudFront, which is optional. So it did mention that, yes, CloudFront is optional, but if you use it, there are these pros and cons that you'll have to be mindful of. Route 53, again, which is optional. And the overall architecture pro and con. So it's scalable. And there's a question from Bhavesh. Can we ask to generate list of recommended article or a blog from AWS or web solution, if any? Let's try it out. Let's try that out once we complete this. So yes, it is possible, but I'm not sure how capable it is in terms of scraping the internet and getting the answers, but let's try that out.
No, it will not scrape the internet, for sure. So it will give the data that it has in terms of the training that has been provided to that specific model, but scraping the data live is not available, for sure.
Got it. Yeah, but at least whatever is being trained, there should be some blogs or
Yes,
articles.
yes. From that perspective, we will get, yeah.
Or if not blogs, it could be the AWS documentations it might pick up from.
No, blogs can be there. So you just have to write the prompt, give a text input, and then as part of the text generation, it will create blogs for you, for sure.
Let's try that out. So now that you're aware about this complete architecture and how you'll be building this solution, even with the snippets of code for your Lambda function, everything is set. You have your schema for DynamoDB as well. Now you have to create all of these resources. And to create it, AWS CDK is one of the choices that you can go with for infrastructure as code. So when I asked this prompt telling that based on the recommended choice, give me the infrastructure code with CDK, it went ahead and gave me the snippet of code, which imports a lot of this constructs with the different AWS services that we are using, and the creation of DynamoDB table, Lambda functions. There is also the read-write grant for the DynamoDB table with respect to the Lambda function, the IAM policy, API gateway, CloudFront distribution. Wow, this is good. So although Route 53 was optional, it gave me the snippet of code and it commented it out because it's optional. In case if I want to copy this and deploy this, I could still uncomment the section here for Route 53 and go ahead. It iterated back on the Lambda function code as well. Although that was a snippet of it, you can see more detailed code of the Lambda function here. Wow. So along with all of these things, it has given me instructions also to say, okay, let me install the dependencies for my CDK, and when everything is done, how do I deploy CDK, the steps for it as well. So making it really descriptive for somebody who's trying things out. And a use case like URL shortener is a very beginner friendly thing, right? And in case if you're not aware about how do you do this is an amazing way to learn about it.
End-to-end solution.
Yes. Now let's see about the question that we got from Bhavesh. With the for recommended choice generated for. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going with Bhavesh's ask in terms of asking what the resources are, uh, which made the LLM understand, okay, this is a recommended choice for this use case. So list the resources such as blogs, white papers, and documentations for the recommended choice generated for the defined use case. Let me save that and run it. Okay. Okay, so far it is the official documentation of Lambda function, API gateway, DynamoDB, the well-architected tool, serverless lens, the AWS blogs around the general blogs about architecture compute. Okay,
Where is the
the
link for
serverless.
serverless terminal over here?
I wish it was trained with my blog. Yeah, you can see that it picked up the white papers and the documentation from AWS, and all the other samples with respect to infrastructure as code with CDK example, serverless framework example.
Why don't
I don't
you
know why.
open any and see if that link is opening also?
Yeah, well architected framework.
Yes, it does.
Yes, yes. Serverless or Lambda function best practices. Yeah, I don't know why this was recommended, but okay. Okay. Yeah, in case all of these questions didn't answer you, you can also always go back to the community and ask people.
Yes. It,
I hope
it gave a
Bhavesh.
comprehensive details of what Bhavesh was asking, like blogs and AWS solutions if which are available. So I think these are the valid choices, because many a times when I use ChatGPT to create references, most of the links don't work. But the links
Mhm.
that has been mentioned over here is very detailed, and I think you tested one or two, right? It works too.
Yep, yep,
That's amazing.
yep. Yeah, and I agree that yes, because this is trained with the AWS documentation inside, all the links are with that, but not off the internet. And anything off the internet could not be a valid resource, right? Because you can always question the authenticity of it.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so that was actually a very good solution where you came up with serverless thing along with well architectured framework and making sure that it adheres with the principles of the pillars of well architectured framework, as well as I think at runtime you came up with a new thought of sharing, instead of the SAM code, you went with the CDK code and explained that how that specific CDK code can be helped to deploy your infrastructure. AWS CDK is also very popular. I have used it previously. SAM is more easy. I know that with the inbuilt CLIs that we have, but people who are from a developer background, for them, I think CDK would be a favorable choice because they can arrange their code accordingly in terms of classes and methods and call it, so they can break it down into a project structure, and it becomes easy to manipulate when the project is big. So I think most of the things we have covered over here, which makes sense to me. And I think Jones, this kind of idea of building it from scratch was seriously, like, I was not expecting, but very happy that you brought something new to the table that is not yet covered in my series of AWS Party Rock. Thank you so much. Would you like to add
Glad
something
to hear.
upon it before we conclude our uh, live stream for the app
Yep.
building?
Glad to hear this, Dheeraj, because my first initial thought was using the uh, prompt, but yeah, it's always fun to play around things with your own hands, right? So yeah, uh, and I didn't know that you had never showcased this capability of Party Rock, and I was the person doing the honors. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think Bhavesh's question also made me curious in terms of telling, hey, uh, how could you how the model could help with respect to understanding what are the different authentic resources that it used to generate the response. So yeah, uh, overall it is an amazing way how you could use just a simple use case and build it out, try it out, and while you're doing it also learn about these internals of the architecture that is being recommended.
So I think you actually missed to name your app, and we have a suggestion for naming it from Bhavesh, that this is how we can name our app.
Done. Let me name it as well. Thanks, Bhavesh.
Jones helped me build serverless. That's unique. That's unique. So I think, guys, we can be here for 5 more minutes to take any questions if you have any, the technical questions or the app that uh, Jones has built recently. And meanwhile, I will also go ahead and share with you a link of serverless terminal. So this is a kind of blog where he shares. It's a newsletter where he shares about all the latest things, or some kinds of different blogs which has been written from the serverless perspective. Uh, Jones, if you can share me that link, I will put that in the chat. As well as, if you want, till the time people come back with any questions they have, you can show it on the screen also, that what exactly this newsletter looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a newsletter that I run every 15 days once. So basically, one was launched just on 14th February. It talks about what's happening in the serverless space. Like recently, serverless launched the serverless container framework. So this whole newsletter issue was around that. In terms of what the other content is the community is building, be it the other community members, be it heroes, be it community builders, and all the other folks from the serverless community who have shared their piece of knowledge in terms of building something with serverless, right? All of these blogs, there are also projects that people really build, the developer tool projects. It could be as simple as helping people, hey, how do I do this? There's Darko, who is one of the AWS developer advocates, who has published serverless uh, sample application, which is basically a URL shortener, the one that we were just trying to do it, but this uses Rust, as far as I know. So and also other updates with respect to the podcast, the live streams that happen and talk about serverless. There are also other different serverless events and cloud-based events that happen across the globe that gets featured. So in case if it's happening near you, you could be aware of it, attend it, learn from the community, and give it back to the community.
So Jones, can you share that link so that I can put that in the chat, please,
Yeah,
of the
I've
serverless
shared it.
container?
Yeah, I've shared it.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Let me share it with the audience. Uh,
I think Bhavesh has another
okay.
question.
Yes. Let's take that question. So, question: what are the limitations you have seen? Question to Dheeraj. Okay. What are the limitations you have seen on AWS PartyRock while building apps? Feature it could be in future. Okay. So, Jones, as you're sharing your screen, can you take me to the PartyRock, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the left hand side, open the menu on the left hand side. Yes. Go to the roadmap. Okay. Scroll down. And yes. So Bhavesh, these are, I think you can minimize the screen. It is too big, where we can see all the features. So answer to your question, Bhavesh, yes, there are a lot of things which are missing. So web scraping, that is one of the thing that I just spoke about, which is not available, but there are many more functionalities which is not yet available. So on the left hand side, the exploring options over here, people have mentioned that what is missing and what can be added over here. Like, for example, suppose if I upload an image right now, we have Amazon Nova Canvas, which is a multi-model FM available, but we don't have a capability where we can upload our image and ask them to process that image and give us the output. So one guy has raised over there that we need an image widget where we can upload our images and analyze the image. The same way, whenever we in terms of analytical task, suppose if I provide a CSV file as a document, and if I want to visualize it in graphs, for that also there is one requirement. So there are multiple requirements which has been mentioned over here. So this is the roadmap where in exploring you will see what people have requested. If you want something, you can actually add it over here, and if it has been picked, it goes to the coming up section, and once it is released, it will go to the right side. So right now, recently they have released a drop down. Previously there was no widget for drop down. They have released recently where you can have a widget, and you can put constant multiple choice parameters where you can select which one to be selected as part of the drop down, which was not there. So they keep on adding. And Amazon Nova, this was not there, it has been added. So if you can see the new foundational models which are coming up, they are adding it also. See, this is the notification for Amazon Nova foundational model that they have recently added. So this is how it works in terms of adding new features and tracking it based on the roadmap that AWS has to introduce for ourselves. I hope that answers your question, Bhavesh. Okay, so
I
I
think
let
adding on to the
yeah.
feature, what's new, they also give you a PartyRock app that's there. So you can see the link that is here. Let me just go in here, say, and the app opens and you can try it out.
Yes. See how beautiful it is. You can also open my app that I that I have launched for creating an image. So over there,
Mhm.
actually, I have mentioned both the foundational models. One is the stability AI foundational model. The other one we have is about uh, the other one that is.
What's the name?
Just give me a minute. If I go over here, mm, okay, it's Imagine AI. I will give you the link of the app in the chat. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So over here, you can give all the details that you want, and based on that, it will generate two images. One image would be the model of Stability AI, and the other one would be with the new foundational model that was released in last December in reInvent, that is Amazon Nova Canvas. And you can tweak it accordingly. So you can see the difference that how this new model performs compared to the previous one.
You want to try it out, you can also remix it and tweak it.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, Jones, we don't have any further questions. So I think it's time for us to conclude the meeting. Thank you very much. Every much, I will say. I'm too much into party rock. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this live stream. And the stream ends here, but the question answer session does not. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Jones via LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, and we would be happy to answer your queries. I hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you, Jones, very much for coming up on the weekend and joining me for this session. I really appreciate that. So before I close this live stream, do you want to conclude or share some last words before we close it to the
Thanks,
audience?
Dheeraj. Yeah, thanks, Dheeraj, and thank you for inviting me and having me here. Uh, I keep using PartyRock for all the mundane tasks and trying to build a lot of things with respect to productivity and things, but always happy to share that with the community. And I usually talk about building it bare hands without a PartyRock app, but this is the first time that I'm talking about PartyRock, so thank you for inviting. I hope the folks who are watching it found it really insightful. If any questions like Dheeraj called out, you can reach out to either of us and we are happy to help.
Okay, guys. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.